started off with this task by looking at toys. So we all had to play with some kids' toys. We had two groups, girls and the boys, and we looked at the differences between the types of play and the types of roles that girls' and boys' toys create. What were some of the differences that we saw when we were just analysing toys? Can anyone remember some of the gender roles that were being formed in girls' toys? Mothering.
Nursing.
And what about personality traits? What kind of personality traits were coming through the most for girls? Caring, yeah.
Hi, my name is Sevi Redwood and I'm a graduate teacher of Charles Darwin University. Just completed my postgraduate in education. My main subject areas include psychology, child studies, PLP, which is the personal learning plan, and Greek language. During the course of my practicum at Darwin High School, the most rewarding experience for me was actually engaging with my peers to improve on my own practice. The most consistent form that I would use for this was obviously my own critical thinking about my own behaviour, and then taking the time after each lesson to actually discuss what happened in that lesson and what I felt and what didn't go as planned and what I could have done better. Having open discussions with my mentors and then going back after that and actually keeping a diary or a journal helped me to actually write down what was going on, think about it, but actually put it down in writing and then make a plan for how I could improve or target that behaviour. The other thing it allowed me to do was to actually go back and track back and remember what I'd actually done or where I started, and to see where I was now and from where I had begun. For me, without the peer collaboration, I don't think really much learning can happen. I mean, you can learn on your own, but you need that feedback, and you also need the positive reinforcement from your mentors to say you are on the right track. And that's always a good feeling, because that's probably the biggest fear of every pre-service teacher, knowing, am I doing this right? The written feedback was also useful. What I did with my mentor teachers was I would write a lesson plan for majority of the lessons that I was going to teach, and I would leave a section at the bottom of each lesson plan that said feedback or comments from my mentor. And then I'd be able to look back, and because she was able to evaluate the feedback then and there and write it down, I was able to really look at the practical elements of my teaching style, not just a broad comment on what your performance was like. And that enabled me to actually target areas that I needed to improve on, and also areas that I was actually doing well in, and make them my strong points. I think that my actual observation process was probably even more valuable than the teaching process, because it got me thinking about what's really happening when the teacher's up the front of the classroom. What are the kids actually doing? How do we maintain their engagement? How do we make sure that the messages are getting across? The observation process for me during my practical was very important. I suppose I've always been the type of learner that learns through modelling, and for me, being able to model teachers that perform really well is a great way for me to learn. So obviously I took on board ideas and processes that my mentors were using, and reflected on how I could use them in my own teaching style. Across the different types of classes I taught over the duration of my prac here, every single class was different and had different learning needs, and the strategies used for each class were so different. And it was very interesting to see that it's not, you don't teach with a specific style, you teach to suit the students. And I think that's what taught me the most. I think that's what's going to help me the most when I go out and teach in the real world, that I'll be able to adapt to my class, not that they'll adapt to me. I think the most important message I can give any pre-service teacher is not to be afraid to ask for help, not to be afraid to acknowledge your weaknesses, and to actually ask your mentor for feedback.
What areas of your teaching practice would you most like to improve? What steps could you take to systematically improve these areas? Who would you trust to give you fair and constructive feedback on your teaching practices?